If you're trading with outdated hardware and legacy technology, you're probably leaving money on the table, and you might not even know it. Not my words, these are the words of Eddie Z, also known as Russ Hazelcorn. He's the founder of Easy Trading Computers. He's been around since the Wall Street days of the 80s, and he's seen firsthand traders crashing, not just because of bad strategies, but because their machines just couldn't keep up. Forget about the latest shiny, flashy software or the sea of monitors. Eddie says the real secret weapon is your computer itself, especially in a world of AI. So in our conversation today, we'll get into benchmark scores, RAM, GPUs, and why streaming 10 4K Netflix shows at once is actually a pretty good analogy for what your trading machine is doing. And we'll also talk about AI-ready setups, local processing, and the specs that matter most without the fluff and things that you possibly won't need or ever use. So this episode is not about financial advice in trading, far from it. But if you are serious about trading, we're going to try and cover the tech side of things today. A quick thank you to today's sponsor, Careerist. And if you've ever thought, I'd love to pivot into a career in tech, but I just don't know how to code, then this is for you, because Careerist QA Bootcamp is actually one of the most accessible ways to break into a tech career. You'll get live training from experts at companies like Google and Meta, a remote internship that you can put on your resume, and a one-on-one career coaching to help you actually land the job of your dreams. And the demand is huge too. There are over 37,000 QA openings in the US alone right now, with starting salaries of up to $105,000. And graduates are working in 42 different states, and the program is rated 4.7 stars on Trustpilot. And best of all, if you don't get hired within a year, you get your tuition fees back. Seems like win-win to me. But the only catch is the seat for the next cohort are closing soon. That's why I'm working with Careerist to get the message out. So please check the link in the show notes to grab your spot. And now, let's get today's conversation started with my guest. So thank you for joining me on the podcast today. For everybody listening, can you tell them a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Eddie Z. My real name is Russ Hazelcorn, but in the world of trading and technology for trading the financial markets, I am known as Eddie Z. And what I do is I help traders optimize their setup for trading. And I also teach day trading of U.S. stocks. So people who are new to trading or even veterans to trading, technology is such a big part of the trading world. And so what we do is help people really optimize their setup so that the technology's in the background. It's not something you have to be worried about. Trading in and of itself is such a peak performance activity that if your technology is not up to speed, it can really trigger your fight or flight response. And when you trigger your fight or flight response, you make very bad decisions. So we make sure that people's technology is optimized for that peak performance activity of trading.
And there are so many people talking around technology and trading at the moment, and how it can be a somewhat of a game changer. And you appeared on my radar when I was reading online that you said that the real secret weapon here in trading isn't a software or a strategy, but the machine itself. So I've got to ask, what are the most common tech mistakes that you see traders making that hurt performance ultimately?
Right. So the biggest mistake I see traders make is that they can't really wrap their head around the level of real-time data that is pouring into your machine, the sheer fire hose of data. And I think a good analogy is streaming 10 Netflix movies at the same time. So, when you turn on your television and then you click on the Netflix app and you get that little spinny wheel for 5 to 10 seconds, what's happening in the background is your television, in this case, is loading all those little thumbnails into the memory so that when it does pop on, it can show them to you all at the same time. And that's called buffering, when the machine, the device you're watching on, is actually taking in a real-time data stream and turning it into something that you can see. When it comes to trading, there's no room for buffering. There's no room for that 5 to 10 second intermission, if you will, while the data loads. When you're trading, the prices you see on the screen have to be spot on really where the market is. And if it's a fraction of a second to several seconds old, that data, it can throw off your whole trading methodology. And then so for example, you go to buy, say, 1,000 shares of Apple, and the price that you get filled at, where the order gets executed at, winds up being a completely different price than what you expected. Not only does it throw off your trading methodology, but like I said earlier, it triggers that fight or flight response, and it can lead to some very bad human behaviors. For example, one for me is in my past, I had a tendency to revenge trade. So if things didn't go my way, I would get into like a fight mode. Like, I'm going to show them, and then I would overtrade, and they would cascade into a series of bad decisions. And that's really like the single biggest mistake. So folks try to take a machine that's 5 years old. They bought it at a big box store, like a local retailer. So it wasn't really optimized for a very high level of use for the level of data that we take in today, it's growing exponentially. So that's really the biggest mistake.
And as this is a tech podcast and we're talking about a volume of data similar to 10 4K Netflix movies buffering at the same time, we have to make that leap to AI here. And with AI-powered trading platforms becoming more and more popular, it can be very tricky to know which are good, which are not, and which to avoid, etc. So how should traders prepare their hardware to keep up with what happens if they don't?
Yeah, that is a great question. Spot on question. So right now, much of the AI is being processed in the cloud. So when you go to ChatGPT or Grok or any of these other services and you ask it a question, all that happens in the cloud, and they're just displaying to you the results of your inquiry. However, in the future, and some people are doing this already, if you start to train these AI models to learn specific chart patterns you're looking for, or to look for very specific indicators in the things you trade, whether it's stocks, futures, or crypto. When you start to train it, you are going to want to have all of the AI processing done locally, because it probably you're not going to want to share your model with others. You wouldn't want people to hack into your model. And so when you start thinking about having the AI process locally, you have to start thinking about what AI processor is in your machine. And a computer, basically, up until recently, most of the processing was done on the CPU, the central processing unit. But over the last several years, they've found that these graphics processing units, for example, NVIDIA, everybody knows NVIDIA now, the biggest, most valuable company in the world, absolutely incredible. But they're using graphics processing units to compute AI because they have a much higher processing ability. And so you really have to optimize both the main processor, the CPU, and the graphics processing unit. And I think that's such a more important piece than it used to be when it comes to trading. And this is still in its infancy as far as I've seen. One thing you have to realize is computer geeks and quants have been trying to game the stock market and all the markets for a very long time. So this idea of program trading has been happening since the 1970s. And so, but with AI, it obviously brings an unbelievably new, powerful way of doing some of these quantitative analytics that they do. So again, having that that graphics processing unit on board, and it makes the computer a little bit more expensive, but NVIDIA used to be known for making gaming graphics cards, and the cards aren't really that different. So they're using like the same processing cores in these AI graphics processing units as they do for gaming. And so it's going to develop as time goes on. It's still really in its infancy.
Such a great point there around the graphics cards. And yes, they went on to be involved in crypto a decade ago, and now we're talking around AI. And as we dig a little deeper here and get our geek on, many listeners might have already turned to Google or AI to help them with the tech specs and what they will need, and they'll quickly come across details around RAM, GPUs, NPUs in Intel's case, and clock speeds, etc. It can be incredibly overwhelming. So
yes.
What are the specs that actually matter when it comes to trading speed and reliability, and what's just overpriced fluff that they possibly don't need as well?
Sure. So you want to, right now, today, August 2025, the specs that would really be the best. The main engine of the computer is still the CPU, the processor. That's the engine. That's the driving force. And Intel has come out with a new, what's called the Core Ultra series that is, quote, AI ready. And the real way to measure the power that a CPU has is by something called a benchmark score. So, in other words, it's a piece of software that forces the processor to run thousands and thousands of computations and then measures how fast it comes back with those computations. That's like a very basic explanation of what a benchmark software or a benchmark score is. So the basis that we use is a website called cpubenchmark.net. If you go to that website, there's a place you can plug in what CPU you have on your machine, and it'll tell you its benchmark score. And they have on that site. There's a database of over 1 million different tests that have been run. So they have the giant database. So, for example, if you have a 12th generation Intel Core i7, they have thousands and thousands of people who have submitted their benchmark score. So it gives you a good baseline of what your CPU's benchmark score is. So by itself doesn't mean anything, but the minimum benchmark score for trading is 25,000. These days, it's not expensive at all to get a processor with a benchmark score of at least 50,000. So that's a really good place. That's a starting place, the CPU. And now second, we would go to the GPU, the graphics processing unit. And as long as you stick with the newer NVIDIA RTX 5060, the 5000 series, you should be in good enough shape for trading. You don't need to go crazy with like one of these 3D processing graphics cards, because you're not going to write the next Pixar movie. You're not going to edit the next Pixar movie. And for trading, it's just the graphics capabilities are not necessary, at least yet. So you have like an Intel Core Ultra 7, an Intel Core Ultra 9, and then even AMD now has a processor called the Ryzen 9 9950. These are all top-end consumer processors, and these will, in my opinion, will get you 3 to 5 years. And if you combine it with an NVIDIA RTX 5000 series, and again, you don't have to go with the highest end 5000 series, because those cards are like $1,500, some cases even more. You don't need to spend that kind of money on a graphics card. And when it comes to RAM, memory, at least 32 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know if your audience is at a geek level where they actually build their own machines, but I can tell you from a trading standpoint, people who are traders, most of them, 95% of them, don't totally nerd out on the technology. They just know that they're like driving, they're in a race, and they need to have a race car. And so that's what we specialize in, is providing that really high-end race car. And the thing about that's so important for somebody who just wants a good machine to trade on and not worry about the geek speak is having somebody to back you up if something goes wrong. Because inevitably, we've all had it happen. You get a blue screen or a Windows update hoses up your whole machine, or it could be sometimes the drivers, like the NVIDIA driver, doesn't want to play with Windows 11. Windows has gotten worse with their updates. Unfortunately, a giant number of our tech support calls are people who get hosed up when the Windows update automatically updated something. But that's a really big part, having really solid tech support and a really solid warranty around that machine.
And that's one of the many reasons I was excited to get you on the podcast today, because as you said, if you are a trader, you're not going to get bogged down in building my PC. You want that race car. And rather than just getting something off the shelf that isn't designed for what you need it to do, you've actually helped, I thought, from what I was reading online, more than 12,000 traders build systems that are designed to do exactly what they need to do when trading, which having that exactly that bespoke PC to do exactly what they want must be priceless in that kind of work. So what's the one thing that surprises them most once they upgrade? I'm sure you get to hear a lot of stories from the traders that you're working with, but what's their feedback usually when they get that brand new PC and they begin trading?
Usually like, oh my God, I can't believe how fast this is. Yeah. Lots of people are still, they might be using the same computer for 3 to maybe even 10 years. And so they just turn the power button on and it takes 3, 4, 5 minutes to boot up because they're still running, on an old school magnetic hard drive. And they might be running on Windows 10 or worse. That would be really bad. And they just don't realize how Moore's law has really played into the technology and how much faster than a computer that's just 3 years old. These new computers, you can boot a computer up in less than 20 seconds, and when you load your trading platform nearly instantaneously now. And even since I started building computers for folks 15 years ago, it's light speed difference. It's remarkable how far the technology has come. So, but a lot of people are still kind of, I don't like upgrading my phone every year. They do have us on a ridiculous upgrade cycle where they try to push the technology on us faster and faster. And as well as I, like even on your phone, one day you go to open your phone, you look for an app and the app's icon's changed, and you can't even find it. Or you open an app and it looks totally different. And now you have to learn how to use it again. And the more tools and apps that you have, the more frustrating it is. And I'm 56 years old. And I guess as we get older, we resist the change a little bit more so than young folks do.
100% with you. There's a tool I use called Descript, and I'm not kidding you. They must update it 4 or 5 times a month.
Neil, I use that app myself, and every time I open it, it looks different. It's like every other day. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It drives me insane. But I know they're improving it, and kudos to them. But sometimes it does feel that they're just moving things around just to confuse me and play with me, But we've also seen a few macro issues this year, from tariffs and supply chain disruptions that have impacted the tech industry. So I'm curious, how is that affecting traders that might be trying to build or upgrade systems right now? Are you hearing much around this?
Not so much anymore. Yeah. It was terrible during COVID. We were having some problems getting components for computers. And then recently, earlier in the year, around the tariffs, prices did go up kind of temporarily, although I will say laptop prices continue to stay a bit elevated. It's gotten a bit better. It seems that it's not as much of an issue. There has been a little increase in price, but so has everything. It again hasn't been. I will say that this latest, the RTX 5000 series, those cards, they're pretty widely available now. But there was a time where we couldn't even get the 4000 series, and the 5000 series hadn't arrived in the United States here yet. So there, you wind up trying to stock up on things. And sometimes when they make these announcements about tariffs, just like they did with COVID, there are folks who go online and try to scoop up all the inventory and then really try to overprice it during a shortage. So that unfortunately has happened a couple of times. But right now, August 2025, not really an issue.
And when reading about you online, you had 30 years of experience in the industry, and you put all that together and created the EZBreakout method. So tell me more about that. And how does the right tech setup amplify the success of a strategy like this? I would imagine you would need both. You can't just, I'll have that method and use old tech because it's not going to work. But tell me more about that and the reasons the tech is so important.
So I started on Wall Street in 1987. My father was a futures trader on the New York Mercantile Exchange. So the day after I graduated high school, I started on the floor of the New York Mercantile Exchange. And every summer, every Christmas break, every spring break, every break I had from school, I went and worked on that exchange. And when I graduated, my plan was to go work on that exchange. That's the exchange where they trade crude oil, heating oil, gasoline futures. Now everything's electronic. The physical exchange. You might remember the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. That's how it was really. It was really like that back then. But when I graduated college, I had a buddy who was working at a brokerage firm, stock brokerage firm, and he said, "Come try this first. You can always fall back on that." And that's how I got into the stock market. I was a stockbroker for 17 years in the early 90s. And just bringing in the technology side of it, being 56 years old, my first computer was a Commodore VIC-20. I don't know if you know your computer history.
Oh, yes. I've got history with that of the Commodore 64, man.
Yes.
Good times.
I had that. Well, that was a good computer compared to the VIC-20.
Yeah.
I got my friend... I was maybe, 10 years old, and my buddy got an Apple II. He had gotten it like 6 months before, and it could do all these amazing things. He was calling up these electronic bulletin boards, which we now know as websites, a little bit different, but communicating with other computers by dialing a phone, taking the phone's receiver and putting it in these rubber cushions so it could talk to other computers. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So I campaigned my parents to get me a computer, and I got a Commodore VIC-20. So I was so frustrated with this thing because it had like 3.5K of memory. Like our watches have more now. My toaster has more memory now. And I'm 10 years old. I pried the thing open with a screwdriver to try to figure out what was wrong with it. This was my holiday present. But that's when kind of like my lifelong journey into trying to figure out how to making computers faster and stronger, that all began. So, and then you blend this with the markets. So I started during this incredible era where there was all these new companies coming public, these .coms, and I was just really in the right place at the right time. In the 1990s. I was not a genius. I was just in the right place right when it started, like 1993, 4, all the way through 2000. All those years, you really couldn't make a mistake. You had to really not have a clue. And I was all geeked out about the technology stocks anyway. So it was easy for me to recommend those to people. And then in the year 2000, the bubble burst. And as a stockbroker, I had 500 clients at this point. I'm 30 years old, pretty cocky and arrogant 30-year-old because I was making good money. And the market had always been good to me. I hadn't seen any kind of real major crash in the market. But after that crash in 2000, I really had to really learn how to trade stocks. Or it was that or get out of the business. And I'm not good at like quitting things. I'm not a quitter. Yeah. So I got my hands on a book called How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. And I would tell your audience that if they want to learn anything about trading the stock market, and it doesn't matter if it's in the US or anywhere, the lessons in this book are universal. How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. That book saved my career. And in that book, he describes a methodology for kind of like a shorter term way of trading stocks. And I practiced this and I studied it day in and day out for many, many years. I refined it into a shorter term system, which I then labeled as my own. But the basis comes from that book. And that's where EZBreakouts was born. It was like this was a survival tool for me in my business as a stockbroker. And so I developed that. I've been using that methodology since 2001. I've just gotten better and better at it. And it's really a methodology for day trading and once in a while holding stocks overnight, not that often. But your question is about the technology. How does technology play a role in that methodology? And it plays a huge role because number one, I'm monitoring maybe 30 or 40 stocks at the same time. You got this real-time data stream coming in. And then each one of those stocks, I have a chart or a graph, if you will. In trading, we call them charts, but it's a graph of price on one axis and time on the other axis. But I have different time frames open. So if I click on, for example, Apple, if I click on it, it'll open up a 5-minute chart, a 1-hour chart, a daily chart. So there's different time frames you can look at. And then in trading, we have something called indicators. Indicators are generally, how would I describe them? They love to use the word algorithm these days. What does algorithm mean? Just a formula for smoothing out choppiness in the way an instrument trades. So you might have like a moving average. So I have a very well-defined, what I call the EZBreakouts sell algorithm, if you will, which is based on an exponential moving average. So if you buy a stock, you first have to put in a stop loss, which is an order that says sell it if it drops this much below my buy price. That's like your parachute, so you don't get crushed. But then if it starts to work, you want that stop order where you want to sell it in case it rolls over. You want that to kind of follow it up in price, so you start locking in profit as it goes up. It's a very short-term method of trading. So being able to I have some custom software that runs in a couple of different trading platforms. The technology is a big part of that. But I mean, it really just goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and that's the ability to stream all this real-time data in spot-on real time. That's really where the two come together.
And a lot of traders do make the mistake of focusing on screens and software, but completely overlooking system lag, bottlenecks, etc. So just to hammer home all the points that we've covered today, what would your checklist be to make sure the ideal trading setup is ready for those real-time decisions that we're talking about?
Okay. The first thing I would tell every trader in the room, and I am coming from being your friend and a trader perspective.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. If you spend 10 grand on a computer setup, US dollars, it's not going to make you a better trader. Yeah. You need what's going to make you a better trader is really learning as much as you can about trading and then learning more how to manage your emotions. What goes on in between your ears is what's going to make you a better trader. Not the technology. Now, you can make a lot of mistakes with the technology if you cheap out. And so that checklist, again, is you want a CPU with a benchmark score over 50,000 to really optimize today's what's possible. You want an NVIDIA RTX 5000 series graphics card. You want at least 32 gigabytes of RAM. You want, if you are not going to build it yourself, you want to buy it from a reputable company who's going to have your back when something goes wrong. Because again, I mean, it's so easy to just foul something up. Sometimes programs don't like to play well with each other. I know that's how old I am. I still use the word programs. We call them apps now. um, but sometimes they just don't like to play nicely with each other. And our competitive advantage at Easy Trading Computers, so we provide computers to people who trade, is that we provide lifetime technical support for traders, and that's the only group of people that we target. So we only deal with traders, we only deal with the trading platforms, and we know how impatient traders can be, and we have people's backs for as long as they own the machine on that. For the tech support. Desktops come with a 5-year warranty. I mean, something goes wrong on your computer, like a RAM chip goes out. A RAM module is like a light bulb. And as long as you stick with very good manufacturers of RAM, they usually come with lifetime warranties anyway. But still, while you're trading, that is an instant blue screen, and it's going to take you some time to figure out what's going on. You want to be able to call somebody who knows you by name and can help you out right away. It doesn't happen all that often, but, electronics, so like cars, or anything where you have so many different components, things can go wrong, no matter how great the product is. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it really does. And something else I'd love to ask you here, because I think there's a real pressure on everyone to be in a state of continuous learning. Looking at your origin story there, we started out talking about you starting with the Commodore VIC-20, how much you've had to learn since then, continuously evolved. We've seen so many big tech changes and trends from, I don't know, the arrival of the internet to mobile apps, applications, and then we have cloud and crypto, and now we're talking about AI. So I've got to ask, all these years later, yeah, we might struggle with things like Descript updating every other day, but how or where do you self-educate? Any tips on how you keep up to speed with things?
Honestly, I think for me, the best place is YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of social media per se. I think that I'm not a big fan of Instagram and Facebook. I've seen too many relationships get fouled up, and a lot of people spend a little too much time looking at meaningless things. It's just one man's opinion. But I think YouTube has become a very good educational platform. I mean, something goes wrong with your car, you can literally search it, or your toilet is running.
Yes.
You can literally look on YouTube and somebody will show you how to fix it. And the same is true. Descript is a good example. If you don't understand how to cut and splice video, or you can find a video on YouTube that will show you how to do it. So we are very still attached to Google. They own YouTube. But I do think it's one of the best educational platforms out there. And I'm at least, yes, there's a lot of garbage on there too, but you can almost always find even really abstract things. You can find somebody who has a solution on YouTube.
Yeah, funny you should say that. Before the podcast yesterday, the lamp inside the cooker that keeps everything nice and bright and shiny in there, that went. A quick YouTube video told me what bulb, how to remove the thing and put a new bulb in there. So you go to YouTube every single time. And I was reading the other day, I think here in the UK, YouTube is now the number 2 most viewed platform and TV channel in the country. So it's overtaking all of TV, and that's got to be a good thing too if we're looking up the right content. But we've covered so much today. So anyone listening wanting to find out more about easy trading, everything we talked about, where would you like to point everyone?
Sure. So everything we talked about in terms of specs for computers, for traders, what's optimal. I've created a guide, the complete guide to trading computers. If you go to my website, which is the letter E, the letter Z, tradingcomputers.net. You can scroll down to the footer, or if there's a page that says buyer's guide, click on there, put in your email. I'll send you that. I will send you that guide in a PDF form. Also, if you go to YouTube Eddie Z Trading is my handle on YouTube. I've created lots of videos where I explain the technology, what works, what doesn't. I've been really working on that channel a lot lately. And then if you're interested more in learning about the stock methodology, you can go to EZBreakouts.com and get the ultimate guide to trading stocks. So that's where you can find me. We're always happy to help anyone out with the technology. Even if you just have questions, you can come to Easy Trading Computers, click chat. My team, it's all in-house. I will say my chat is not AI. It's not a chat bot. You're going to get one of my expert team members will be more than happy to help you with any questions you have regarding the technology of trading.
Well, what I've loved around talking to you today is if there's a trader listening, not interested in geeking out, just wants to get up and running with the best possible machine, bespoke and designed for what they need it to do, you've covered that seamlessly. But also, if you're a geek listening that knows the tech inside out but knows nothing about trading, you covered that too. So thank you so much for packing so much into a 30-minute conversation. Really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure, Neil. Really great conversation. You ask great questions. I appreciate it. And thank you.
So whether you are a veteran day trader or just starting out, here's the bottom line. Your trading setup matters more than you think. Sometimes it's not just about chasing the fanciest graphic card or maxing out your RAM for bragging rights. It's all about building a reliable, responsive machine that just works when you need it the most. So a big thank you to my guest for breaking down CPU benchmark scores, the right GPU, and enough memory, and maybe most importantly of all, solid support. When you combine all these things, these actually could be your greatest asset when trading. But as I said, this isn't financial advice. But if your system lags when it matters, maybe there's a tech problem that you can fix. So you can find Eddie's free guide videos and support at the website that he mentioned there. I'll add links to everything so he's nice and easy to find. And if you're listening to this on a slightly laggy device, maybe that's your sign that you need a new setup. But enough from me. Hope you enjoyed today's episode, something a little bit different, and I enjoyed it for that very reason. I will be back again tomorrow with a completely different topic. But thank you for listening as always, and I'll speak with you soon. Bye for now.